All right, let's try this. What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 18 of Podcast Reload, the general gaming podcast by Sifted.net subscribers, where we invite a community guest onto the show to talk about the game's fuck.
I've never heard of that game before.
Has anyone ever made a game that's called fuck? What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 18 of Podcast Reload, the general gaming podcast by Sifted.net subscribers, where we invite a community guest onto the show to talk about the games industry in all its weird ways. I am your host, Vin Hill, from England. This is how I talk. I throw things in the bin and ride the lift. And joining me, as always, is my co-host and fellow Japan dweller, Evan Piotrowski. Evan, how are things going in Kyoto, Japan, where you live right now?
Hey guys, it's Evan.
That was definitely Evan. And joining us as well is, of course, our community guest, Matt, a.k.a. berkough.
Howdy ho. Sorry.
No apology necessary. It's all my fault. So as you can tell, Vin is not here this week. He is actually in Tokyo, no doubt doing some shady dealings with the Yakuza. So I will be hosting episode 18 of Podcast Reload. And we thought, hey, let's kill two birds with one stone and get two guests on. So, as I said, we have Matt, a.k.a. berkough, and Tom, a.k.a. Washed123. That's correct, right?
Yes, that is me.
Yeah, the famous slammed your forehead on the keyboard. You did a username and Washed123 is what popped up. It could have been worse.
It could have been. What was there before was worse. I'll say that. What I had before was much worse.
Yeah, sometimes a forehead to the keyboard solves things.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's get into the questions for our guests. So I will start off with Matt. Question for you, Matt. If you could have any developer make any game, remake, sequel, new IP, whatever, who and what would it be?
You know, I was actually thinking long and hard about this one. And I wanted to say old BioWare. I wanted them to make a game. But then I realized that a lot of the guys that were at the studio when KOTOR was being made have all gone on to do stuff with Stoic, right? Banner Saga. So I was thinking, if Stoic redid Parasite Eve, how fucking badass would that be?
Okay. That's not a bad one at all. I mean, it couldn't be worse than, what was that game called? Third Birthday?
Yeah, the PSP exclusive or whatever it was.
That was pretty bad. I mean, so I guess the main question for me it would be like, what kind of combat would you like to see in this game?
Well, I don't know, I'm a fan of turn-based, and I do like the combat in KOTOR where you can like pause it. Like it's kind of it's live, but it's not really. Like you can select the actions and it'll happen in real time, but you can always pause the combat just like you can in Mass Effect. You know, like you can pause the combat and stop and think about what you're doing. So I would want something similar to that where it's still kind of turn-based.
Sure.
But Parasite Eve allows you to have, since you do have modern weapons, allows you to still have like third-person shooting and cover mechanics and things like that. So I suppose like a hybrid of kind of what Mass Effect ended up being with, KOTOR's turn-based stuff.
Okay, and you're a fan of Parasite Eve, right? Like back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day, I liked it. It doesn't really hold up too well today, I don't think.
No,
But
it doesn't. The story was really cool, at least the first one.
Right, the story is solid. I think you could take that same story and do another game, and it would still be on par with the stuff we're seeing these days. But yeah, in terms of the mechanics and stuff, I don't think that it would hold up as well.
No, yeah, I think what you're talking about in terms of the fighting, that might be the way to go. It's just the most unfortunate thing about that series is like it completely like blew its load in like in the opening, and it's like
Right.
nothing can ever top that opera scene. I remember playing that for the first time when I was a kid, and I couldn't believe it. Just the spectacle of that whole place burning down and the girl singing. It was yeah, man, it's burned into my mind forever.
It was pretty intense.
Yeah, definitely. All right, yeah, that's a cool one. I didn't expect. Yeah, you pull one of those games. You know, it's like Parasite Eve is one of those games you forget about, and then someone brings it up. It's like, oh yeah, that game was awesome when it first came out. So yeah, that's a good pick. And Tom, how about you? If you could have any developer make any game.
Valve make Half-Life 3.
Sure, sure.
No. Actually,
Confirmed.
yes. You heard it here first. No, I would say actually Ubisoft to make a new Vegito Blade game.
Yeah, you know,
Was that Ubisoft back
It
in the
was
day?
not. It was not. But I would like to see them, especially the way they've been doing. Crap, whatever that new game is they have with the
For
combat.
Honor.
Yeah.
For Honor. That's it's kind of like Bushido Blade.
Yeah, and as well, it was a little bit less arcadey, but as well as like I was thinking of the Assassin's Creed games and stuff. I think it'd be pretty cool to see them tackle Vegeta Blade because Vegeta Blade 2 is honestly like one of my favorite games of all time. Like I think that game was just so much fun. So I'd really like to see them handle something like that.
yeah, yeah, those games are awesome. I love the fact that they had the balls to like make a proper like samurai game where usually
Yeah.
those fights between two samurai would last that long. It was
Uh-huh.
usually one quick strike and
You're
that
dead.
was it. It wasn't this massive, you know, like clinging of swords or this massive battle. Yeah, it was just if you got there before the other guy, then you won.
Yeah,
I love that
you
about
weren't
those
going to
games.
take like eight hits with a katana or anything.
I
Yeah,
remember that being one of the reasons that that game blew my mind at the time. I was like, oh my God, if you just strike just right, that's it.
Yeah.
It only takes one blow and you can totally win a match.
and I loved how like every now and then you'd like take an arm out, and so like the arm would just be like limp on the side, and you're just holding the sword with one hand. But
Yeah.
some of that game for my friends and I would just turn into us just running in circles, and then like one person just making the decision to like just turn around and try to do a quick strike. But yeah, that was that was cool. Yeah, it's funny you say that, Tom, because when I saw For Honor for the first time, the gameplay, the first game I thought of was Bushido Blade. And
Really?
then it just wanted, I just thought of like, yeah, I kind of just want a new Bushido Blade, to be honest. And some of the HUD stuff in that game is it's a bit too busy for me. I like that Bushido Blade had nothing.
Yeah, it was very minimalistic, and it's weird because I think there's a game out. I don't know if it's the Way of the Samurai series or something, but there's like a couple games that have the exact same font as Vegito Blade, and it just really irritates. And they're samurai game too, but I know it's not Vegito Blade, and it just
Yeah.
irritates me to no end to see those games because I've been craving a new Vegito Blade game since I was like 8 or 9.
Yeah, that's one of those things like you see a game being made and you're like, no, no, you ruined it because now the game I want is going to have to be made like 3 years from now. Like you took that game from me. Actually, I played Way of the Samurai on PlayStation 2. There's quite a few of those games.
Yeah.
In terms of combat, that's as close as I've seen any game get to the combat in Bushido Blade. Those games aren't actually that bad. They're not really refined. They've a lot of problems, but there's some cool things going on where the game is really short. It's like 3 hours, but there's different decisions you can make in the game. So what you end up doing is playing the game over and over and over and finding like there's like 10 or 15 different endings just depending on like the people you talk to or who you side with and stuff like that. Some good stuff. Cool. All right, so moving on. Let's move into what we've been playing this week. So I'll toss this to Matt first. Matt, what have you been playing?
I have been playing The Witness, actually.
Oh, really?
I bought the game when it came out. I had it day one, and my wife and I blew through it in about 2 weeks and beat it. And I was listening to, I think it was Giant Bombcast or I can't remember what podcast it was, but they were talking about the new Scion game, Abduction or Obstruction, something like that. I can't remember what the name of it is. It's on Steam, and it's by the guys that made Myst. And so they were talking about that style of game.
Right. Okay, I remember seeing stuff about that game.
Right. So they were talking about that style of game, and I was like, I need to revisit The Witness, you know? And it's interesting going back and playing it because you don't remember any of the puzzles that you did. You just remember the language that it taught you to figure out the puzzles.
Oh, sure.
And so,
That totally makes sense. Like, how would you remember, like, exactly how to do hundreds of puzzles?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so it's weird because there's a lot of hidden stuff in the game too. No spoilers, but you can spend a lot of time just hunting around. And I have one trophy that I need to get in order to platinum that damn game.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, so I've been spending a lot of time trying to figure out, like, what the hell do I need to do here? Because it's a hidden trophy. And I haven't looked online, like, to, for guides or anything like that. So I have no idea what the hell I'm supposed to do.
You have way more patience than I do. I would immediately look online to see what that hidden trophy is. That's awesome, though.
Right.
I really hope you get it. So you still have no idea, right?
No, I haven't looked it up.
Huh.
So, yeah, I don't know what exactly it is or what the hell I'm supposed to do. But, yeah, that's what I'm working towards right now. And I think it'll be the first game that I ever platinum. I've never platinumed a game. I don't have that kind of patience, like you were saying.
That is actually, that's insane to me because, like, okay, so I don't have a PlayStation 4 yet. I know. It's an ongoing joke on the show, but
right?
yeah, I have a list of games in my head for like what games do I want to play immediately upon getting a PS4 Pro. The Witness is somewhere on that list, but there hasn't been a game in quite some time that has intimidated me more than The Witness. I don't know how I feel about it. Like, I do want to play it, but I'm so intimidated, and I have like 6 platinums maybe, and to me that's insane that for your first platinum, you're going to platinum a game as intimidating as The Witness.
Okay. If you have somebody else to play the game with, I would highly recommend sitting down with somebody else because most of the puzzles in the game are not super difficult or like really obscure or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get the patterns and you understand what the symbols are trying to tell you to figure out the puzzles, sometimes it's just as simple as somebody else looking at it from a different perspective. I'm like, oh, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I totally get that.
Yeah. So I can see if I had sat down and play it by myself, I might not have gotten as far as I did. But the fact that my wife was totally into it and she wanted to play the game, her and I going back and forth talking about the different puzzles that are in the game, like, okay, well, try this. No, try that. It definitely helps if you have somebody else that's like sitting in the room or is playing the game
right.
During the same time that you are, and you guys are going through the same stuff. That totally makes a world of difference.
Yeah, that's how I beat Braid. I sat down and played it with my brother, and just like you're looking at something so close that you can't see it from a different angle, and then the person next to you is like, oh, what do we do that? And like, oh my gosh, I never even saw that. Yeah, so that would help. Unfortunately, none of my friends all only play Pro Evolution Soccer, so they will be of no help to me if I decide to play that game. All right, cool. Yeah, that game is definitely on my list. I do want to get around to it. I've heard nothing but good things about it, so that's cool. I hope you're gonna have to update us at some point on your platinum journey. Maybe write a blog on Sifted or something.
Right? Yeah. For me, man, it's GOATY because think about all the games that have come out this year.
Was that January? I think.
No.
Witness?
No, I think it was February or March. It was pretty early in the year.
Okay.
But all right, think about all the games that have come out this year, right? How many of them have had patches that have fixed the game, like day one or the first week?
All of them.
The Witness
answer.
is the only game that I can think of where the only patch that they did, like right after the game was released, was to fix the field of view or the frame rate or something so that people didn't get sick. And it was like a small, minute percentage of people, but everybody else able to just jump in and play the game, and it works. It's the same game. Like, it has received no updates since then. That blows my mind. And for the level of complexity that it has, and just like the sheer number of puzzles and how the world's interconnected and everything, it blows my mind.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan Blow, like, worked on the game, like, man, I don't even know how many years, just tweaking and adding puzzles and expanding on it. So that's not surprised that the game is, you know.
And it wasn't overpromised. It was exactly what he told us it was going to be.
Oh yeah. Okay, and moving on. Tom, how about you? What have you been playing?
Well, I've actually only been playing Modern Warfare 2 lately, but that's because I'm doing a retrospective review on it, so I'm trying to get as much footage as possible. But yeah, that's about it.
Hello.
Sorry, I wish I had something to say about it.
No, it's
I mean, it's Modern Warfare 2.
I know,
This is a solid game, man. But
See, I actually I enjoyed it, especially when it came out. I remember I was like completely broke at the time, and I sold my PS2 and like all my games for that, which I kind of regret,
right.
just to buy it. And then because I hate Call of Duty 4.
Okay.
I think I have
You're talking about the first Modern Warfare.
yes. I have a lot of issues with that game.
Is it the type of thing where you thought, or Call of Duty 4 was the game that pointed Call of Duty in the wrong direction going forward, or?
More like FPSs in the wrong direction, but also it just irritated me a lot of reasons because like game trailers called it like the best graphics of 2007, and like how it was such a great first person shooter, and like I just hated a lot of things like it wasn't fun to play to me. It just, it had all those set piece moments, but like once you got past that, it was just a corridor shooter with absolutely zero AI, and it just became not fun to me. But for whatever reason, because my brain's broken, I was still excited for the next one.
Oh,
So
sure. Yeah, I can see that.
I got that day one, and Modern Warfare 2 actually ended up correcting everything I didn't like about. Yeah, so I did a review of Call of Duty 4. So I'm doing one for Modern Warfare 2, and then I'm gonna do one for Modern Warfare 3 as well. So I pretty much have just been trying to get like as much footage as possible from that game, and it's like for whatever reason my multiplayer is completely broken on the PC, and like it looks like it was hacked, but I never did anything, so I don't know why it is the way it is. But yeah, it's about it for gaming for me.
All right, cool. And you can find those soon-to-be reviews on MediaDissection.com. And did I get that right?
Yeah, it's a media dash dissection.
Oh, shit. Sorry. Just trying to give you a plug there.
No, I appreciate that.
That's media-dissection.com?
Yeah, or you find the easiest way is the YouTube channel Metal Loud.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
It'll always be up there.
All right. Reviews soon to be coming. Yeah, actually, I'm happy, Tom, because I'm usually the only person on this section of the podcast that has been playing like an old game.
Yeah.
Like Vin's like, I've been playing the Battlefield 1 beta. I'm like, I've been playing Infamous 2, which actually happened at one point. But yeah, so I've just finished, in terms of me, what I've been playing, I just finished Yakuza 5. I think I clocked in at about 71 hours in that game.
Jesus.
Yeah,
God.
it is a massive, massive game. You can kind of mainline the story to an extent, like, you need to do side missions to get experience points because some of the fights in the main story are pretty difficult. So if you don't have like a high enough heat gauge or a meaty enough life bar, you might run into some problems. But man, I'll just say it, like I think Shenmue 3 is going to ultimately be a disappointing game.
Yeah.
Just like
Maybe not. I mean,
it's like just from what I mean, this is all early build stuff from what they've shown us, and it's like everyone's waiting for Shenmue 3. It's like they've been making these games for years now, and they are the Yakuza games, and I think they're better. And looking at Yakuza 6, there is no way that Shenmue 3 is going to look anywhere near as good as Yakuza 6.
I think graphically it's definitely going to disappoint people, but I think the people that are going to be playing Shenmue 3 are not the people that are looking for the most graphically impressive game. They're looking for, the game where you can walk into the mart and play the fucking Galaga. You know what I mean?
You can
just a detailed world.
You can play a full build of Virtual Fighter 5 and Puyo Puyo in Yakuza 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. You can walk into the Sega arcade. You can play with UFO catchers. You can take Purikura pictures, and you can play Virtua Fighter 5. It's pretty crazy, but the game is great. Not for everyone. If someone had didn't like the Yakuza series or wasn't interested in it, like I totally get it. But for me, the gameplay loop is fun. The combat in that game it's so cathartic when you punch someone in that game or grab a bicycle and smash it over their head and then jump on the basket that's attached to the bicycle and then smash it on their face. It feels so good to beat people to bloody pulps in that game.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but because I was actually having fun just imagining that, like beating people to bloody pulps.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think. Sleeping Dogs, wasn't that? I want to say that it was a different game before it actually became Sleeping Dogs. And
True Crime.
Oh, okay.
It was supposed to be True
Yeah.
Crime. It was because there was what was it? True Crime New York, True Crime L.A., and this was supposed to be like True Crime Tokyo or whatever. Or is it Tokyo? Or is it
I think Hong Kong
Yeah,
or China.
True Crime Hong Kong.
Right.
Did they lose the series or something? I forgot what happened behind the scenes, but yeah, it turned into Sleeping Dogs.
Yeah, that's a good game. That's more of like an open world game, but the combat in that game was awesome. Yeah, and they had like environmental takedowns and stuff where you could like smash a guy's face into like a fish tank, or like close like a store shutter over someone's neck.
Yeah, I was just thinking that it was similar to what you're describing with Yakuza.
Yeah, I really like Sleeping Dogs, and I actually I went to Hong Kong in March this year, so it was really cool to like play that game and then go see the city. Really, really awesome city. Probably one of my favorite cities of Southeast Asia. Not a city. Hong Kong's Hong Kong, right? Anyways, okay, moving on into the small two. Matt, what is your topic for the show?
My topic is a question, really.
Okay.
And my question is, what exactly is retro? The reason I ask this is because I have a coworker who's 18 years old. He's never played any SNES games. He was born in 98, and the first system I think he ever played was PlayStation 2, which blows my mind. So it got me thinking, and I think Evan, you had mentioned Retronauts, and I checked that podcast out.
Oh yeah.
And they had a whole topic, and they were talking about like, well, retro is 10 years, and anything that's beyond 10 years is technically retro. And if you look at that from the context of today, retro is basically PS3 launch titles. Like we're already hitting, and I think it's difficult for gamers like us to look back and say, well, yeah, launch titles for the PS3 are retro. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, just because it was the cycle for that gen was so long. It was like the second the PS4 came out, launch gen PS3 games would technically be retro, like when that happened, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we're in 2016. I think the PS3 came out October or November of 2006. So if you go back 10 years, like technically, launch titles for the PS3 would be retro
Sure.
or would be considered retro. And so I just was curious, you Evan or you Tom, what retro means to you and what you consider to be retro.
Okay, Tom, do you want to tackle this first?
Yeah, I've to me, I would say either two console generations or 15 to 20 years would to be is my kind of like threshold for retro. So like, I would consider the Xbox and PS2 to be retro at this point, but definitely not PS3 launch games. I mean, or Xbox 360 launch games. None of that to me is really retro at this point. I would say 2004, 2000, really 2001 or 2002 at this point to me would be kind of the threshold for what I would consider to be an actual retro game, or what's considered that at this point. I think anything newer is just not. It's not old enough yet.
Yeah, like
Right.
so, like in your heart, right? In your heart, for example, I'll ask Tom first. Like, how do you feel about the PlayStation 2 without thinking about the years?
You mean like in terms
Is
of.
it retro? Do you think PS2 is
Yeah.
retro?
Yeah,
Yeah.
to me the PS2 is retro. Even though I lived through it, like I still remember bringing mine home and setting it up for the first time, and I bought it. I can tell you exactly what happened. I bought it at Toys R Us. I bought it with Jedi Starfighter, and I hooked it up immediately in my living room and started playing it with one of my friends. But to me, even going through that process of living through it, I still consider that to be retro at this point.
Okay. Matt, do you consider the well? Actually, how do you feel about it? First off, just what is retro to you?
To me, I think that it's transcended the time period, or like the time frame that you're looking at, and it's more of an aesthetic and a feeling, right? So, if you talk to somebody that's maybe in their 40s or 50s, they're going to think of retro as Atari. Like the Atari 2600 to them is retro.
Right.
If you talk to somebody like me, it's going to be the Super Nintendo, the regular Nintendo, the PlayStation. Like that stuff to me is retro because that's kind of what I grew up with, and that was kind of what I was getting at, like with my coworkers. Like, this guy's 18. This is probably his first like real job that he's ever held, working full time, and like for him, retro is PS2. Like that was the first console he ever experienced.
Right.
And we see a resurgence, these days, especially like on Steam. There's a lot of games like one of the ones that I've played recently is Slain, Back from Hell.
How is that, by the way? I love the subtitle in that as well because it didn't have the best launch.
No, it had a horrible launch. It's kind of the same game. They did rework the combat a little bit, but it's NES hard. Like the game's ridiculous. You have to literally remember every movement. So like when you die, all right, you start at the beginning, you go back through it, and you have to like learn every movement as you go through. And that's the experience that I had playing early Nintendo games.
Right.
And so to me, that would be quote unquote retro.
Okay.
It has the aesthetic in terms of pixel art. The music's a little more updated than what we have experienced in the past, but in terms of like the gameplay mechanics and things like that, it's it very much holds true to that type of design philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
I've never beaten it. I've only gotten past maybe the first level, but I think if you were to get far enough in the game or get good enough at the game, you could probably beat it in an hour or two.
Okay.
I don't think it's a very long game.
It's like an NES game. Like if from start to finish the game's probably only like 2 hours long, but it's gonna take you a hell of a lot more time than that to get that good to beat it.
Right, like the original Castlevania is like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Like you can literally beat that game in 45 minutes if you just run through it and you're that good. But I remember playing that game as a kid. I couldn't get past maybe the second or third floor.
Oh God,
Just,
I beat that game for the first time like maybe 7 years ago. I remember. Yeah,
right?
it was insane. Like the hallway leading up to death was insane until you find out just use the holy water and the level becomes really really simple. But yeah. All right. Well, yeah. So I totally get. So I think Tom's approaching it from more of like a categorical sense, which totally makes sense because you do need that stuff.
Well, that's kind of the way that I posed the question.
Sure.
I was going to ask Tom if he, I don't know, do you feel that you can use sort of quote unquote retro as a style, an aesthetic, a mechanic standpoint? I mean, do you agree with that perspective?
I do, but like at the same time, I mean, I think that's so subjective to apply because that's gonna depend on like everyone. I know obviously who what timeline like my idea is also subjective, but like I don't know. To me, like to say an aesthetic, like because when does something else become retro? You know what I mean? Like if that's the aesthetic now, as far as like pixel art and stuff like that we consider retro, when does like early 3D graphics start becoming retro? Or
And I think you see that now with look what's that game called Demon Daggers Dungeon. You guys know what game I'm talking about? Even though I didn't even give you
No,
the specific name of it. You know that game that I don't
no.
know the name of? Do you guys know the name of it?
oh yeah, yeah,
Of
I love that
course,
game.
Yeah,
yeah.
that one. It is not called Demon Daggers. It is Devil Daggers.
Devil
Devil
Dagger.
Dagger.
Have you
I don't know
seen
that
this
game.
game? You should check out a quick video of Devil Daggers. This game came out this year, but it is totally doing what you guys are talking about. It is tapping into like
Oh yeah.
PlayStation 1 aesthetic. Whereas like I think the most popular aesthetic to tap into is like NES style like pixel art, right? The fidelity.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, which doesn't. I don't understand why. Just because it would seem to be easier for a small team to just generate a bunch of models, low poly models, and then build a game from there. But you do see a lot of small teams like, okay, we're gonna make the best pixel graphics you've ever seen. Like D-Pad Studios just released Owlboy,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
freaking
Wow.
amazing pixel graphics. And there's actually a game on Steam right now called Savant, which is D-Pad Studios. It's like $2. I highly recommend buying that game. It's like the best $2 you'll ever spend in terms of pixel graphics. Like the artwork that they put into this game is ridiculous.
Okay. Yeah, so okay, yeah, okay, so yeah, Tom is talking more like categorically, right? In terms of what's retro, and then
Yeah.
I'll which yeah, like I totally get that, but like for me if I'm just like I brought up or like I said before, like in my heart, I feel in terms of what's retro to me at this point, the cutoff for me would be PlayStation 1 and 64. And then you ask, well, why? And I think that's why categorizing this stuff is important because sometimes it's difficult to explain why. But Matt, you also brought up the idea of like what you grew up playing. I think if you were to discuss what
Yeah,
is retro non-categorically, is probably one of the most important things to me. That being said, if you were born in like let's just say 1995 or whatever, and let's just say you're born what like 1998. So what are you now like 17?
you're 18 years
18
old.
years
Yeah,
old. Like you're
that's
still like what would be retro to you because you've only been playing games for like a handful of years, and so like is there any retro when you're that young? Like, or if you're 15 and you're playing PlayStation 4, like what's retro to you if you've only been playing games for a couple of years? So that's also part of it. But well, let's just say a 15-year-old maybe when they were 6 years old they had a system like they played the DS or something. That would probably be retro to them, I'd imagine.
possibly. Yeah, I think it's funny. Like my nieces and nephews. So we have a regular Nintendo Entertainment System that's hooked up to the TV here at our house. And like when the nieces and nephews come over, they love to play the Nintendo.
That's awesome.
I don't think they have a concept of like what retro is. They just know that like, oh, like Mario is on Nintendo and this is what Mario looks like, you know?
Right. That's so cool. Have you guys seen the it's a bit off topic, but the guy who did like a 8-year long project of introducing his son to video games? Like
No.
there is an article somewhere. He started, and this is like within the last 10 years. He started his son on, didn't show him anything, like no PlayStation 3, no iPad, nothing. He started him on the Atari, and they slowly worked their way up. And what he did is he took a handful of games that highlighted the system itself, and like they played through the Mega Man games and Castlevania and stuff when he was like 4 or 5 years old, and then they went through all the eras, like up to like PS2, and then I think he skipped from there. And that kid, he had at one point he was like the youngest kid to like speed run Spelunky. This
wow.
kid who was brought up like on these
old
systems.
games.
Yeah, which is pretty it's pretty crazy. This guy, he had a blog and he documented the whole thing. I would not have enough patience to do that, as much as it sounds cool, like to introduce my kid to like how I grew up playing games. I don't know if I could do that. It'd be really hard to block out everything. Like he's playing Mega Man, then he looks over at your MacBook. He's like, something's wrong here. Like, you're not telling me something. No, don't look here. Play Mega Man 2.
Yeah, that sounds kind of like, I don't know, that's cool, but also kind of sounds cultish.
Yeah.
Like,
A lot of people raise that issue. Like, should you do something like that? You know what I mean? Like he was doing it for himself, not for his son. I think.
definitely, yeah, it was obviously for him, and I mean, it doesn't seem like that's not something that's gonna like damage your child or like psychologically
No.
scar them. But like, it
But
just
it is
seems
an
a little-
experiment. It was an experiment, right?
Yeah, true, but like I mean, it's
Yeah.
there's worse experiments that people pull on their children.
Right, yeah.
But like it just seems, I don't know, like I don't think you can. That would be something that would be very hard to do, because if your kid goes to school or something, everybody, all these kids have like iPhones and stuff now.
Yeah, I don't know how he did that. That's part of it. And again, I don't know when he started this. It might have been early 2000s. I'm not entirely sure.
That's true.
Yeah. But all right, let's get back into the conversation. But yeah, like for me, I think retro. It's one of those things like, look at like fashion or things that come back into style. It takes like the cycles, the loops for that stuff tend to take a long time. And if you start seeing a game like Devil Daggers where, it's like retro, well, not retro, I shouldn't say that, like PS1 style graphics, people are making like indie games or small games with that aesthetic. When that starts becoming a thing, I think it's like that's when you start hitting like, this is definitely retro. And the person who made Devil Daggers, I don't know how old they are, the PlayStation 1 might have been their system of choice when they were like 8 or 9 years old, and it's like now they're older and they like, yeah, like this is what I remember. So instead of them feeling nostalgic about like a pixel art aesthetic, they're nostalgic about like low poly like PS1 graphics. And so yeah.
Well, here's the thing with that. I mean, I don't think anybody's getting nostalgic for early PlayStation 1 and 64 graphics. I mean,
I don't know. I think you might be surprised. There are some weird people out there who like just want to play Banjo-Kazooie in all its muddy textures.
Well, that's because, I mean, I understand playing that game, but I mean, like, looking at Devil Dagger, like, I can't imagine wanting to release a game like that now and want to actually play it now, versus, like, the pixel art stuff and, like, even the 16-bit stuff that we saw with, like, what's that RPG that just came out that's, like, looks like really updated 16-bit? Like, it looks like it's, crap.
Talking about I Am Setsuna?
Yes. That one.
Yeah, that was literally the game that I was talking to this kid at work about.
Oh, really?
And I was like, dude, have you ever played Chrono Trigger? And he was like, no, what is Chrono Trigger?
Oh, that's
And I was like, get the fuck out of here. What? Like, how have you not even heard about this
Yeah.
game?
Yeah, like that's the style of art. Like I could totally, because that looks like that's the kind of like cool art. Like if you update that stuff now, you can make games like Castle Crashers kind of had that vibe a long time. You know, that was one of the, like the early games I remember as far as having an older aesthetic.
Totally, it totally feels like TMNT for Turtles
yeah.
in Time.
And I think
Yeah.
like playing Castle Crashers. Yeah,
but I think that's a slightly different because that's well, it's not different. We're just talking about two different things. Like art wise, it's like you can't really compare it. But when you talk about like gameplay wise, yeah, it's totally like
and the feel.
Yeah, the feel of it. It's like yeah, this is totally. I remember like yeah, Turtles in Time. This is exactly what they were going for. Yeah, but I see what you're saying, Tom, because like pixel art is like it's timeless. It's like Super Mario World still looks really really good. It looks as good as it did when it first came out as it does now in 2016, whereas you go back to like the N64 and it's like this does not look good.
No,
I mean, it's pretty clear to
that's the
see.
thing. Like, I don't think
Yeah.
anybody's. You know, the difference is like I still consider, like I said, like the PlayStation 2 and stuff. I still consider that to be retro, but I don't think anybody's looking at PS2 games saying, "I wish I had." You know, I want to make a game with this style graphics. You know,
Well, I think have you guys checked out Virginia at all?
Not yet. I've seen the reviews popping up on Sifted. But
It just came out this last week. I would say, even if you've just seen screenshots, that kind of approaches that style. Okay, so it's not obviously that like there's some bloom and there's some other like visual effects that are going into it, but like it's a low poly style that's reminiscent of PS2, PS1.
it's a good middle ground, I think, because
Right,
it looks
yeah.
it's low poly on purpose, obviously, but it it looks good. It's like pleasing to the eye, and I think it fits well with if you wanted a low poly game. Like it's a really good art design and aesthetic to have in 2016 for a new game.
I think we'll approach it. I think that there will be some devs out there that like take that and kind of run with it. I'm still waiting for something to come back like Colony Wars. Like if somebody remakes Colony Wars, I'd be super happy. I'd be even more happy if an indie studio was like, "Hey, here's a procedurally generated game that's basically Colony Wars gameplay."
We're all hitting similar points within what we feel is retro, just looking at it and at different angles, I think.
yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the only other thing that I would ask is if we're looking at it in terms of like your chronology and like time frames, and in terms of like games that have been out for a while, how, like Tom, you're on PC primarily?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, so this has been around for PC for a while. Like, how do you feel about GOG? Do you buy a lot of games on GOG?
I actually do a lot, because the fact that they bundle it automatically with DOSBox, I think is kind of cool. Like versus like for instance, I was talking about Jedi Knight before, so I still have my original discs of that game, and I can run it through DOSBox. I saw it was on Steam. I immediately bought it when it came out on Steam, and it was a mess. It just did not work on Steam at all. But you could buy it off Good Old Games, and it runs with DOSBox automatically, and you don't even know that that's right. Like if you didn't know what DOSBox was, you wouldn't know it was running, and that's why I think it's what they've done with that platform, especially with retro games, especially with PC gaming, and kind of alleviating that whole the problems that come with trying to play older games on modern systems.
That used to be a headache, man.
Oh yeah, it's a mess. It's yeah, no. So they've done a lot to kind of alleviate those issues and kind of make it seamless for the end user, which I support them 100%.
Yeah, that stuff's important. I mean, look at film. Like how much of what is it? Some weird percentage of like technically like 60 or 70% of like recorded film like it's not been archived and it's gone.
Oh yeah.
It's just deteriorating.
I don't remember the exact.
We'll never be able to recover it.
I don't remember the exact percentage, but these efforts, like they're fighting the good fight seriously to preserve this stuff, because I think it's important, like historically, that this stuff is preserved in some form.
So Evan, you're primarily on console. You're on PS3. How do you feel about like the PS1 classics and some of the stuff that they've put on PSN?
I think it's great because actually, being a PS3 owner, I rarely have anything to play. So it's always nice to just every time a sale pops up, go back into that, like and then play a game that like I had never played on the PlayStation 1. It just passed me by. I wasn't aware it was around. Like I played the Misadventures of Tronbon
Oh yeah.
last year, and I loved it. I mean, those controls are rough, but if that was never available on the PlayStation Store for PS3, I never would have played that game, and I think I would have missed out on something. So I do like that stuff. It's just it once I get my PlayStation 4 Pro, like all those PlayStation 1 classic games, like, you know, what do I do with that? I have to keep my PlayStation 3 plugged in if I want to play them. Like I have Suikoden 2 sitting on my PlayStation 3. I never played it when it first came out. I do want to get through with it, but I have to keep that system on the shelf. Not like that's a difficult thing to do, but, you know, I got to keep it there if I want to play that game.
Well, yeah, like my PS3 died on me.
Yeah, there's also that, you know.
It would power up and it would get into the menu, but I couldn't play any actual games on it. So I was able to sell it and I got some money for it. But yeah, no, I'm pissed because I have all these games that I bought on PSN that were PS1 classics. Like a lot of them I do have on disc, and part of the reason I even bought them on PSN was just so that I didn't have to bust out the disc and worry about scratching them. But now my only option is to emulate those.
Yeah.
Because my PS3 is gone, and my PS4, even though I log in online to my PlayStation account, it's like, hey, you purchased this game. Would you want to download it to your PS3? Like, no, I don't have a PS3. Damn it!
Yeah.
Like, if I could just download this and play this on my PS4, everything will be fine.
Yeah.
But Sony, you can't do that for some reason.
Yeah, this actually goes back to a conversation that Tom we had in one of the episodes where we were talking about re-releasing games and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it is up to the companies. Like, they own the games. If they want to re-release it and make money off of it, like, you know, you don't have to buy it.
Exactly.
But I mean, it's annoying for sure, but as long as they can re-release games and make money, which everyone re-releases games and makes money off of it, they'll never create like a single thing. Like Nintendo will never create this sole account to where like you have everything and it doesn't matter how much time passes. Like that is this one account where you have all your games. You know, like if I want to play some of the virtual console games, you know, I got to keep my Wii U plugged in or whatever. But
Well, there's a lot of like I think we did talk about this. Like there's a lot of reasons for that too, because people don't realize. Like I don't know, like if you guys have ever tried to emulate anything, it's a lot of times does not go well. I've been using a PS2 emulator for a long time, and when it first came out, it was like if you didn't have a multi-core processor and if you didn't have like all this high-end hardware, you were not running anything. And if you were running anything, you were lucky if a game ran right, and if it ran right, you were lucky if like it, you know, didn't even crash or anything. So like as far as porting over old games to new systems, especially when you're talking about something like a completely different architecture, like going from the PS2 for instance to the PS3, and then even from PS3 to the PS4 or whatever, there's a lot of work that actually goes into that people don't realize. They think that it's just a video game and they can put it on any platform that they want, that they choose to, and that, you know, it's just this money grubbing scheme as far as re-releasing it on another platform without giving you a copy or something like that. And there's just so much that goes into it. But besides that, again, people also don't understand it is their game. You bought a game for the PlayStation 2. You didn't buy it for the PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation 4. You bought it for the PS2, and that's it.
right. No, I totally get that, you know, and but I will say that some remasters or remakes or reissues of games are better than others.
Oh yeah.
Which is, and I mean, if they release like a shitty port or a version of it, that's on them. But yeah, I mean, it's gonna be like that forever. I mean, it's up to you whether or not you want to play the game again. If you already own it on a prior system, you're gonna have to break it out and play that. And you can do that. It might be a pain in the ass, but you can do that for free. Yeah. I know it takes a lot of time, but Yeah, that's all good points. All right, moving on. Let's get into topic 2. So, Tom, what is your topic for the podcast this week?
So mine is kind of twofold, sort of related to each other. The first thing was about the Michael Pachter comments about basically he called PC gamers, compared them to racists as far as how they don't like other gamers and don't like other systems. So he the actual quote he said, at least the part of it they took is the interviewer asked him, for gamers that are more traditionally PC who have seen the announcement of the PS4 Pro, are they going to be more inclined to go for that? And he responded with, PC gamers are like racists, where they only like their own kind and have no interest in venturing out and mixing with other races. And I mean, to me, that's more than just a bad choice of words, because I mean, he tried to go back on that and say like, oh, it was just out of context, and it was just this who the interviewer or the author of the article like making a mountain out of a molehill and stuff. But the whole thing is like, I don't know if you've been following Michael Pachter since he started on game trailers, when he started talking about video games, but he's kind of had a whole, I don't want to say anti PC, but like ignorant of PC gaming for a long time. So this is kind of just another string of horrible, like he should just not talk about PC gaming, period. And then on top of that, it's just like comparing them to races, like racist and racism, especially what's going on in this country these days. That to me is just like really, really poor choice of word, like beyond just poor choice of words. Like so like Matt, how do you feel as far as him choosing to refer to PC gamers as like racists?
I love Pac. I think he's awesome. I would say that probably 50% of the time I don't agree with what he has to say, and that's one of the things that I love about him, because I never know where he's gonna come from, and some of the things that he says, or like the angle that he takes, it forces me to think about it differently. So I will say I think PC is probably the most evolved and probably the best platform that you can choose these days, so long as you know what you're getting into. Um, so we were talking about emulation and like playing games on DOSBox and things like that, right? Um, in PC, you have to be able to like, do your configuration and know what the hell you're doing with the configuration. Console, you just throw the game in, it runs and it plays, and that's it. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think that there is sort of an elitism that comes along with being a PC gamer to a certain extent, but it's only because of the fact that you're willing to involve yourself and you're willing to put the effort in to really have full control over your system and really make that a priority, as opposed to, I want a set top box that I just press a button and the game goes. You know what I mean? Most PC gamers are into, tweaking the settings, and if there aren't enough settings for them to tweak, they're pissed about it. You know what I mean? Like, that's a common complaint. That was a huge deal when Square finally decided to release FF13 on Steam. It was like, really? We can't run this past 1080? Why,
I'm surprised
Square?
that they even decided to bother with releasing that shit game on PC.
All right, well,
I'm just kidding. Please continue. I'm not. No, I'm not
No,
kidding.
I
I'm not kidding. But please continue.
I agree with that particular game, but just as an example,
right.
like, why did that not have, like, when it was released, a resolution beyond 1080? Like, that blows my mind. You know what I mean? This is the type of stuff that PC gamers
Sure.
expect, and it's not. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's racist, but like, if you're in that, and that's your deal, you know what I mean? Like, you upgrade your parts, every component that's in your PC, every setting to your favorite games, to make them run perfect and on your hardware setup, and I mean, that takes a level of dedication that most console gamers don't have.
I mean, just to
And
even like build like a competent gaming PC in the first place, like that takes a lot of time and money. So you have, expectations, and you want to pay attention to that type of stuff because it took a lot of money to be able to run games, uh, to a
exactly.
My whole thing is like,
Right, like
my issue isn't necessarily with the comments, because I mean, anybody who is a PC gamer, anybody who's been online, there is a sense of elitism, and there is that whole PC gamer master race thing.
Yeah, yeah,
But
Tom. I was actually just going to ask you. Obviously, you're going to get into this now, but do you think, to a certain extent, like that stamp on PC gamers has been earned to some extent?
the elitist thing,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't really, I don't know. I'm not a PC gamer, so I don't know. Like, how do you feel about that?
yes and no. I mean, back in the day, especially. I mean, being a PC gamer was a huge deal. I mean, it was like, if you're talking about like the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, PC gaming was kind of like Wild Wild West type. You there were so many different vendors, so many different parts. This part might not be compatible with this game. Everything was kind of just like a mess. So to actually get into PC gaming, you had to be concentrated, you had to be dedicated, and there was this sense of entitlement and this sense of elitism that was, maybe not necessarily earned, but it was definitely there. Especially where console gamers and stuff, especially as you got into the PS2 and the Xbox, where they kind of started to push towards PC game or genres and stuff that used to be PC exclusive. And it's still there to what?
I was going to say the ports were a lot better too for
Yeah.
PS2. Like that was when you started to see like more cross-platform
Exactly.
between PC and console.
Exactly. And like honestly, like Halo was really the game that kind of like opened up the floodgates and stuff. But there's still that residual sense of elitism that's always been there. That's probably always going to be there as far as PC gaming goes. But
Yeah, but I mean, do you think that's like a small portion of assholes making a bad name for PC
Yeah.
gamers in general?
Yeah,
That's
and
kind of how it works, right?
well,
Jesus.
mostly. Well, here's the thing too. Most PC gamers have consoles. That's the thing, is like you're obviously going to run into idiots online who are going to trash anybody who plays a console and refuse to like accept anybody who doesn't talk highly of the PC or whatever like that. But like I have an Xbox, I have an Xbox One, I have a PS4, I have PS3, I have well, my PS3 is backwards compatible, so technically a PS2. I don't think you're going to find that many PC gamers who are so against playing on the consoles. It's more when you get into things like online arguments and forums, as far as where you have console gamers who will there is this sense of elitism. When you have a PC, you do kind of feel proud of it because you built it yourself, or unless you're a hack fraud and bought it. But there's this definite sense of pride that you have. So when you have like a console gamer or someone coming in and basically talking crap about how their machine is running the game the same as you and all this stuff, there is this kind of outlash. So but that's where it stays. It's not a real thing. I guess there, in the community,
Yeah.
there's not this real sense of, they're not going to actually ostracize somebody who plays on the consoles, because most of them do as well.
Right, right. I mean, and so Tom, obviously you're a PC gamer and you have all these consoles. Matt, how about yourself?
Yeah, same. I mean, I got my PS4 and I have a decent gaming rig for my PC, but yeah, I kind of delegate between the two. Like, it's all about what game I want to play at the time, and what's gonna run best on either system. At least for me personally, based on the stuff.
Yeah,
that
so
I
you have your options, right?
Yeah,
right, so-
exactly. That's
Okay, so moving this is basically like a massive like PC gaming topic, right?
Yeah,
Moving into that, how do you feel about the the Microsoft's PC gaming initiative.
So that's what I want to talk about with lately. Microsoft has been really kind of pushing into PC gaming with their whole cross-platform release where was it Play Anywhere, where you buy it on Xbox One and you get a copy for the PC as well, and you play it on either platform. They really, Gears is coming out for the PC. The remaster of the original Gears came out on the PC. Forza, they have that whole Quantum Break's coming out. It is out, but it's going to be on
Yeah.
Steam now.
Okay, yeah, that's I hope going forward this works better because Quantum Break, when they released Quantum Break and then Recore most recently, it's not the best start to this whole initiative because
No.
I've heard bad things about both of those, especially Recore with a lot of issues. But yeah, anyways, continuing.
Well, Gears had a lot of issues too. Gears came out and
Oh yeah, yeah.
had horrible issues, where it wouldn't even run on some cards. And I think Quantum Break actually wouldn't run on GTX 970s for whatever reason.
Jesus.
At all. So the but here's the thing though. My whole thing, the reason I want to talk about this is I don't know. Evan, I know you're not a PC gamer, but back in 2007 when Vista released, and what Microsoft did this before. They did this whole pledge for PC gaming. They said they were going to fully support it. They released Games for Windows Live.
Oh, I mean, okay, so I've
totally not
right.
in
I've
earnest.
never experienced games for Windows Live, but I've heard all the stories of this initial push.
It was all a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, that's the thing is they pushed out Halo 2 was the first kind of flagship game that they did, and it worked really well. It was upgraded textures, it ran perfectly. It also even had this whole really cool idea back when discs used to be relevant, where you could actually start playing it from the disc as it was installing, which was something that no other company or game was doing, which was actually really cool. And then they released what was that game? It was a multiplayer shooter. I forgot. That was another one that was supposed to. They released Gears. The original Gears was on the PC, and there was this whole push in 2007, kind of into 2008, and then all of a sudden it was just gone. There was Microsoft just said, you know what, forget this.
Like they quietly stepped back.
Exactly. It was kind of.
They were probably gearing up to get ready for the next console cycle, and they were trying to look at their options to see okay, do we really want to support the PC and specifically Windows as a viable platform, or are we basically going to go toe to toe with Sony this next release cycle and do another console? And I think that's what they were looking at. I don't think that it was ever in earnest, and I think that's what you're seeing right now too. Is okay, well, as long as we appease the Windows PC gaming crowd right now, the ones that actually do buy shit through Windows Live, or they're willing to buy it on their Xbox One and play the PC version because it's better because the Xbox One can't do higher than 720p, then I think they're just biding their time until they can get more people to buy the new hardware and the Scorpio, and then we won't hear about it anymore.
I don't know about that because to me this effort has been significantly better than it was in 2007. That's why I bring that up, because in 2007 it was kind of just they made all these promises and then dropped support completely. But now it's people had problems with the Universal Windows platform, and they made changes to it. They were willing to actually fix things. Quantum Break came out only through the Windows Store. Now it's going to be out on Steam. Those are things that I wouldn't expect it back then.
I think Quantum Break being released on Steam is huge.
Do you think that's them admitting that there's a problem, Microsoft, releasing it on Steam?
Kinda.
No, I don't think it's an indication that there's a problem. I think that that's an acknowledgement that there is a platform.
Okay.
And it's a social platform. It has nothing to do with the operating system you run or anything like that. It's totally about the social ecosystem that Valve has built. And they're saying, you know what, we really can't do that with a Windows Live Store. So we may as well put our game where people are actually going to buy it, where the trophies and the achievements and stuff they earn and the game within the social context of their friends is going to matter. Because you have Origin, you have Uplay. They're horrible, and nobody uses them. Like, the only time that you use Origin, okay, Battlefield 1's coming out. Like, I'm gonna have to download that fucking game on Origin if I want to play it.
Yeah.
And I'm a PC gamer.
Yeah.
So
Oh my gosh. I just as a side thing, of course, I'm playing an old ass game. I'm playing Prince of Persia, like Sands of Time or whatever, for the PlayStation 3, and I'm playing this game and like a Uplay achievement popped up, and I was like, what the fuck? I'm like, oh yeah, that was a thing. I totally forgot about that. That was funny.
yeah, like, nobody cares
Uplay
about it,
is
right?
terrible.
Because like your social investment in terms of like your games and like what your friends actually care about is going to be what everybody's on, and everybody's
Yeah,
on Steam.
no one's
you know
moving.
what I mean?
No one's moving from Steam.
No, and I'll tell you what, like, I game primarily on Linux. Okay, if an indie game that I'm interested in is on both PS4 and Linux through Steam,
Does
gonna
that
buy it on
do
Steam.
those games exist? It seems like a
Yeah.
very
they do,
Just
they do,
kidding.
yeah. But I'm gonna play it on Steam because I already have that like profile built up. You know what I mean? I've invested some time in like the types of games that I have on there, and like the amount of time that I've put into certain games and the badges that I've earned. And I'm concerned about my friend's Steam level. I need to buy those games so that I can jump my
Sure.
level up,
Yeah.
and compete with him. And like Windows Live Store, if I had that, if I actually was running Windows, I wouldn't care. Like, why? Everybody's on
Yeah,
Steam.
That's the
and
thing.
go ahead, Tom.
Well, I was gonna say, I think you're talking about Uplay and stuff. I think Microsoft actually recognizes the power of Steam, which is something I think EA has failed to do, and fail to. Well, either they fail to, or they do recognize it, and they just are digging their heels in. But Ubisoft actually, you can buy like Assassin's Creed and stuff through Steam, and even though it opens up Uplay for whatever reason, you would still go through Steam. Like, you don't have to have Uplay to buy the game, unlike Origin, where you want to play Star Wars Battlefront, you have to buy it on Origin. There is no other option.
Okay, I'm completely in the dark
Right.
about this. Is Origin still a thing?
Yes,
Is it
is.
okay? Yeah, I do remember like Ubisoft like kind of backtracking, and it's like, okay, like no one really gives a shit about Uplay, right? So, but yeah, I did not
Well,
know that
I
Origin
think-
was still they're still digging their heels in. As Tom said, I didn't know that.
I think Uplay still acts as like a secondary
Okay.
DRM
Yeah.
for Ubisoft games, but beyond that, it doesn't really have any bearing. Primarily, you're going to be playing these games through Steam, so it's like, yeah, when a Uplay achievement pops up, you're like, oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, so like you play, at least Ubisoft has recognized that it's a smart idea to let people, like, you can go into Uplay and buy a game if you wanted, but like they recognize that people are on Steam and they're gonna buy on Steam, and that's how they want to play, and like it's kind of a seamless thing. Like, yeah, you have to log into Uplay, but whatever. It's not like, again, it's not like it's Origin exclusive, like, or like it's not like on Windows. It's not like you have to buy it through the Windows Store, and that's the only way you could possibly buy it.
Right. Okay, so kind of wrapping this up, how do you? Okay, I'll throw, since this is your topic, Tom. I'll throw this to you. How do you feel about the future of this Microsoft PC gaming initiative?
So I was really weary at the beginning because we saw this in 2007. We've seen Microsoft do this before, where they've said, we're going to do this. We promise we're going to support this platform. It's our new thing. But they failed to do anything beyond like a year of support. But this time around, it seems to be a little bit different. Like I said, people complained about the Universal Windows platform and how restrictive it was in terms of you could only run in a window mode. You couldn't unlock. You couldn't disable VSync. There was like a bunch of other things that it didn't work with SLI or multi cards. And they've actually gone in and fixed those things, which is something that the old Microsoft, I don't think, ever would have done. I think they would have just said, tough shit. So I really think that I have hope at this point. They've given me at least a semblance of hope that we're going to see more first party games on both platforms.
Okay. All right. Cool. And Matt, how about you? How do you feel about the future of this initiative?
I think it really depends on how well games like Quantum Break and Recourse sell
Which is,
on
I
as
wonder,
PC
at this point.
as PC titles. Like, how do they really sell? Because I mean, they're marketed primarily as Xbox One games. You know what I mean?
I think initially they were, but
And well, and really, it's about Microsoft trying to do what they always do, which is to corner the market and hold on to as much market share as possible. And I don't know how much they can actually grasp at this point with how far Steam has come, and good old games and Origin and Uplay and Desura just filed bankruptcy not too long ago, but I mean, you do have like these other social environments that people are invested in, and it's like to make this push now when you didn't make good on the promises, like Tom was saying back in the Vista days. Like, who cares? Like, people didn't invest at that time. There was no social environment for you to be invested in, to follow through until today, to be like, okay, yeah, I want to continue buying Microsoft games and through their stores and their platform and stuff. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, but I think that that's what most people are concerned with these days is the social aspect and like how all of their other friends are playing these games and how they get to interact with them.
yeah, definitely. All right, cool. So moving on, it is time for our sifted.net content callouts of the week. So I will throw this to Matt. What is your content callout of the week?
I'll keep it going with the PC topic since we had a pretty decent conversation on that. But my content call out was the latest Jimquisition where he talked about Ark Survival Evolved.
So do you want to explain that just quickly, like what the whole problem was with Survival Evolved?
Well, the big issue is the fact that it's still in early access and they released paid DLC and everybody's bitching and complaining. And I think it's an interesting concept. Like, okay, are games even like, does beta matter at this point? Like, does early access matter, or are games just a service that you purchase and continue to invest your time in? And so I think that was kind of what Sterling was getting at in his Jimquisition, was just like, okay, they're kind of a scummy company for doing this, but like there are way worse companies out there. I think um, Shane even touched on, talking about digital homicide and how they're trying to sue Valve because people are butthurt over their games and they have negative things to say about them.
Yeah, I don't get it.
It's like, well, don't release shit quality. But yeah, no, it's interesting. Like, okay, so we have betas and we have early access. So like, what does it really matter? Like, I had Starbound 3 years ago. I think it just recently came out this year. That's crazy to me because I played it.
Yeah,
You
that was
know,
actually
I invested.
sorry. That was the only the only question for the Pachter factor that was ever read was I had a question about betas, like do they hurt games, because sometimes it's like you think they're already out, or if the beta is too early when the game comes out you've already played it enough, that type of thing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's weird. It's I don't know.
Well,
Arc
early
Survival Evolved.
access, like, I mean, I think it's a great idea in concept. It's just something that's poorly executed because of what you said. Like, you think the game's already been out for so long, or that you've had the game, but you don't realize that you're playing a unfinished game. That you are essentially a beta tester. And I just don't think that's like communicated properly to people, which is where I think people get upset when they start playing these games and they realize they're all broken and stuff, and then there's this whole outlash. Of course, Digital Homicide is handling that very, very, very poorly.
Yeah, it is weird. I think yeah, it's like so many betas out there nowadays in the last couple of years. It's like, yeah, people don't look at them as just as betas. They think it's the actual game. It's just not the case. It's I don't know. It's like, I don't know. I think that's up to like, there is a communication issue, but it's one of those things, like, it's a beta. Like, do you know to just type in beta, Google beta, and like read what it's about, and then just yeah. like don't complain too much. If you have feedback, like they want that feedback, give that to them, but don't scream about the game being broken. That's kind of the whole point. Have you seen those Battlefield 1 that reel of like bugs? That was great. That was amazing. Oh, all right, so moving on.
Well,
go ahead, Matt.
I was gonna say all right. Okay, let's say that Battlefield 1 was to release the DLC right now, and they were to charge you for it, and you could buy that and play it as part of the beta that's going on right now. Like, how would you feel about that?
I don't know. I don't like Battlefield. I'm just kidding. That wasn't the question.
It's all right. That's it, but it's right. EA, right? So like everybody would be like, "Fuck EA! They're a horrible company. This big corporate conglomerate. Like, why are they trying to sell the DLC now? Like, well, maybe they're just trying to test it out because everybody knows that there's going to be a season pass with that game." But the guys that do Ark Survival Evolved, they're a small studio, and that's kind of essentially what they did. Like, their game's still in early access, but they're like, well, there's this DLC that you can purchase on the side. Like, we need the money, and you can test that too.
I think the money is probably the biggest issue, is people pay for it, so they assume that they're getting a product at the end of it. Oh, totally, yeah. I think that's the biggest issue.
Yeah, that's where the communication problems come in. So, yeah. They need, that was just, I think it was a bad execution, bad decision on their part to try to charge for something that's not even technically out yet. Okay, so moving on. Tom, what is your sifted content call-out of the week?
Well, originally it was the DLC for I believe it was Rock Band or Rocksmith, the Misfits, because they actually, if you don't know, just got back together for the first time in 30 years.
Oh, wow. I saw the article of the DLC release. I did not know they got back together.
Yeah, they're mostly original, other than the drummer, their entire original lineup, who have not actually played all together in over 30 years at this point. They actually played Riot Fest recently. This was the first time you had Danzig, Doyle, and everyone back together, so it was kind of a big deal. So yeah, I guess we'll talk about that. So yeah, I was gonna switch it on the subject of PC gaming to the PC Gamer article about optimizations. That's actually the one I want to talk about. I don't know if you guys saw that.
No, I did not.
Really good article.
Is it like?
It didn't come up in my stuff.
You gotta change your settings.
Yeah. Got the wrong settings.
Right.
Well, I guess, okay, so if you don't know, it's a great article. It talks about how, like, you always hear game developers or, forum people talk about how games need to be optimized and how this game runs poorly, so it's poorly optimized. There's an automatic, people have this, like, idea that there's some sort of correlation between a game running bad and it being poorly optimized. And think that, like, optimization is just this magic thing that makes games run better. But they actually go fairly in-depth as far as what optimization for gaming actually means and what it involves, and how there is somewhat of where you can rewrite the code and say, instead of a code that does, like, 3 calculations or 3 different multiplications, you could write a better, more efficient code that does 2 instead, or 1. And there's a little bit of that, but there's also what it more boils down to is the right kind of anti-aliasing or the right kind of rendering or sure. that. And they actually, the example that they bring up is the game Dying Light, because when it transferred it to the PC, what they did was they bumped all the settings up from the consoles. So, like, the base setting for Dying Light on the PC was higher than the consoles already, and it ran like crap on a lot of people's rigs. So a lot of people were upset and thought, this is poorly optimized. That's why, without realizing that, well, no, it's just pushing more, it's doing more. That's why it's not running as well. But yeah, it was a really interesting article in terms of what optimization actually means.
Oh, that's interesting. That did not pop up in my SIFT either, or I must have missed it. So I will definitely have to go through and check that out. It sounds like an interesting article. All right, so coming up to the end of the show, let's give our goodbyes, our Twitter handles, all that type of thing. Matt, what is your final goodbye, and any shout-outs you want to give, Twitter handles, all that type of thing?
I'm at berkough on Twitter. I don't tweet a whole lot, but yeah, thank you guys for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. I've been looking forward to it for a while, and I think we had some great conversations. So
yeah,
good night. Good luck.
I will say that for some reason, I thought I told our two guests, but I didn't tell them that Vin wasn't going to be here. So, and I could hear, like, it was very audible, the disappointment in their voices that they had to deal with me for a couple of hours.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So
Man.
yeah, I mean, yeah, Tom, this is his second time on the show. Matt's first time. Matt, we'll definitely have to have you back. Have a conversation with Vin in here next time. But yeah, thanks for coming on. And Tom, what is your Twitter handle or anything, any bumps, any plugs you want to give, and goodbyes?
All right. Well, again, thank you for having me on the show again. It was actually last one I was on was episode 8, so this I believe is episode 18. So that's kind of cool.
Oh,
yeah. I'm on Twitter at MetalLoud, and I tweet obsessively, so apologies in advance. As well as that's kind of like my whole handle mostly. I have a YouTube channel, MetalLoud, do music reviews and video game stuff and whatever's. And also I have a website which is media-dissection.com.
Yeah, which I accidentally, wrongfully plugged earlier in the show. But yeah, you can check out all of his stuff at media-dissection.com. All right, cool. And anyone listening, if you want to join us on the show, all you have to do is message me on sifted.net. I am the Standy user on Giant Bomb Twitter and Sifted. So send me a message with your time zone, your microphone, like Maker, and times you are available on the weekends. And yeah, I will get back to you and put you on the show at some point. Got a couple people waiting to get on the show, but the list isn't as long as it was before. So if you want to get on the show, definitely give me a PM me, and you'll probably be on the show within a month, to be honest. So yeah, definitely, if you're interested, get on that list. All right, that will do it for us on Podcast Reload, episode 18. Again, thanks you, Jesus Christ. Vin, come back. I don't want to do this anymore. Fucking suck at it.
This is the end of the Podcast Reload.
Yeah. Oh, God. I think he has a separate doc where he reads off this stuff. I do not have that document. I should have typed one out or asked him for it. But anyway, this was episode 18 of... Jesus Christ. This is episode 18 of Podcast Reload. Tom, Matt, thank you for coming on. Definitely appreciate it. And yeah, that'll do it for us. Everyone, thanks for listening. See you next time. This is where we keep saying goodbye, and I'll edit it out as the music fades in.
Bye.
Bye.